Water Week has passed, but Johannesburg's taps remain under pressure. Protests in Westbury and Nigel, other communities, they've highlighted growing frustration with outages and also just frustrations over communication collapses. But Joburg Water has now pledged 600 million rand, and that's to upgrade the Commando system, which aims to stabilise supply even as level 1 throttling continues. But with summer heat approaching, the stakes are of course increasing. So we're going to be exploring whether this investment will bring lasting relief or are residents still facing pipe dreams. For this, CEO of SA Water Chamber, Benoit Leroy, joins us to weigh in. Benoit, good morning, and thank you for joining us at this hour. I can see you're donning your loudly and proudly Bokke regalia, so we're obviously wishing them all the best of luck. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Morning to you and the viewers.
So, Benoit, the latest coming through, 600 million rand injection into a system. And I wonder if you could weigh in whether this is a sustainable fix. Is it just a patch for deeper structural issues? Talk to us about what you're observing following this Commando system that has now been pumped with 600 million rand to address supply issues.
Yeah, so I think it might appear superfluous, to people, but I think it's really major because, Joburg Water was investing about 1.2 billion a year into its water infrastructure maintenance and rejuvenation. And this year it's budgeted just under 1.8 billion. And a third of that is going to the Commando system, which is a huge investment. And it's one of the older systems. And in water, we break it down, the water distribution systems, into district measurement areas, the DMAs. So approaching it in a systemic and systematic approach is actually quite good. So they're going for what has been a very problematic, one of the problematic, it's not the only one, but a big problematic and old system. They're going to rejuvenate it. And it goes to show that, the voices are being heard. And so it's a major investment. You can't go big bang. You have to go system by system. And obviously there's budgetary restraints. And until, it gets increased, the plan is to increase it to 3 billion a year over the next 10 years, then we will start seeing much more investment into the other systems. So overall, it's a good step forward.
Okay, Benoit, thank you for that. Thank you for painting that picture. I know that level 1 throttling is also happening, and we're questioning whether this is an effective tool, water management tool. What are the long-term risks associated with that? Perhaps you could explain what this is to give people more context as well.
So the systems are designed to be wet. That's what we call it, and 24/7, 365 days of the year. What happens when a system is throttled and it runs out of water, air replaces it. And when it starts recharging, when there's water available, the air gets compressed and you get water hammer, and vulnerable systems start leaking more, bursting, etc. And you start seeing what we see, these big pools all over the place, and then you're chasing your tail. So the throttling from an engineering perspective just destroys the system. But the question is, what's the alternative? So what they're trying to do is to throttle on a strategic basis across the various systems to a level where the reservoirs are able to just supply. And sometimes they bypass the reservoirs, for example. So I don't think there's any other choice to do it. The consequences are dire. You just destroy the system, what's left of it, quicker. But what else do you do? It will run dry. So you don't want everything to run dry. So it's done on a rotational basis. And I think it's the only tool left until, the system, and the system's going to need somewhere around 32 billion rand to be in a reasonable condition, not in a perfect condition. And, that money has to be put in, and also supply chains have to be activated, because it's a huge amount of work that we haven't done for 30 years. So it's not an overnight, we can't switch it on overnight. So in the interim, the water shedding is unfortunately a necessary evil, despite its consequences. But there's only that much water in the system that we can have.
Well, thank you for also providing context and that thorough explanation as well. And it's good to hear that the cries have been heeded, because we're obviously looking at the state of Johannesburg and realistically managing population growth. There's urbanization, you've got climate pressures that add to this, infrastructure decay. Can Joburg manage this simultaneously? Summer's also coming up, G20 as well.
Yeah, it's called the perfect storm in our language at the moment, because we have all of the problems, and we've got the storms coming too, but we have all of the problems, water, waste and energy, all arriving at once, where, globally there's rapid urbanization. So it's not unique to South Africa. So we could have foreseen this, and we're seeing we're going to have up to 2 to 3 million extra people in Cape Town alone by 2050. That's been catered for in their water strategic planning. Now, in Joburg, and generally speaking in Gauteng, we are not managing the current growth. Now, we're going to get even more growth as urbanization increases, and the system rejuvenation is very slow because of fiscal pressures and supply chain, as I mentioned. So we have all of these moving parts. I think there's a very good team in Joburg Water that's been staffed for 30 years, 20 to 30 years from, decent funds from the Joburg Council. And it's not that easy. It's competing, it's not an easy thing to sort out. There's competing priorities. So, do you cut health to do this, etc.? So we've got a fiscal system that's constrained. So water is making a lot of noise now. And what we need to do is to be seen to be addressing the situation. And we need to, and unfortunately, government's very bad at disseminating good news, and we often debate this. We need to promote the good wins. We need to PR them to try and get the communities to appreciate the complexities involved without making excuses, so that we can address these things. And so one has to really have an open book approach. And I think we're starting to see this. Is the water security, the Gauteng dashboard, where we've got all 3 metros plus Rand Water individually and combined, showing the weekly status and a monthly reconciliation, so showing the amount of leaks, non-revenue water, physical leaks, showing the amount of water we consume, what the limits are, etc. So there is a desire to disclose more information, to become more open book, and I think that's good. Obviously, from a consumer perspective, it's always too slow, So, but we are progressing in the right way. So, from an engineering and water security perspective, we're taking the right steps. We just need to speed it up.
Okay, and thank you for speaking to that, because I wanted to obviously also just look at the fact that because we're heading into summer and there's heat waves that come as a result, I wonder if Joburg Water has ways to safeguard supply, perhaps to avoid a day zero scenario. I'm asking this because if we look at alternatives, rainwater harvesting, desalination, even water recycling, how expensive are these? How easy are these to implement? What should these long-term solutions be looking like based on that blue drop, green drop, one drop report?
So we're not on the coast. Desalination is difficult from a seawater desalination, but from an acid mine drainage or mine impacted water, we have just on the western limb, so the southwestern side from Carltonville, those areas, we have about 200 to 300 megaliters a day. Gauteng needs about 5,000. So we have that water. It's expensive water, but having no water is very expensive too, because that just shuts down the economy. So we've got that available. It would take 4 to 5 years to bring it online if we started today on the planning and design and funding applications, because there's money around. One has to crowd in the funding. We could reuse, and this has been on the plans for a long time, but if you can't manage your own network, you don't have enough resources and money to manage your own network, how do you go on to these more sophisticated reuse? So we could reuse a good portion, and there was a plan to reuse around 80 to 120 megaliters a day, and Joburg is using 1,600 to 1,700 megaliters a day, to put it into context. So there are plans to do this, but when you're fighting fires, literally trying to keep the pipes from bursting, how do you address those things? And this is where we need to really bring different thinking in on top of what we're doing, and that's where policies in place for private sector participation, for PSPs. So I'm not talking privatization, I'm talking participation, where we bring skills, global skills, into the mix. So we're going to have to augment the existing skills we have within the 3 metros, within Rand Water, for example. And there are attempts to sort out the Mfuleni issue by producing what they call a special purpose vehicle, which is a ring-fenced vehicle that operates, let's say, on a demonstrable basis, where accountability can be held and cash flows can be ring-fenced. So the movements, they're very slow because they're complex, but there is hope in doing that. This summer is unfortunately going to be quite uncomfortable because a lot of these initiatives that were started 2-3 years ago are not going to take us through the summer easily. But we won't have a day zero. Day zero is when everything runs dry, and it runs dry for days and weeks on end. We're going to get sporadic, which we're getting used to, sporadic ones. The big thing is to communicate them in time so that people can plan ahead and can amend their habits accordingly, as uncomfortable it is. And I think we're getting closer to that, where Joburg Water, for example, is broadcasting through the WhatsApp channel, through Facebook and X. They're broadcasting what's going to be throttled, what days, rotations and all that. So there's an amount of planning that can take place so that we can ride the wave, because this is going to take 5 to 10 years to actually overcome completely.
Well, Benoit, let's monitor all those developments as they continue. But thank you for weighing in. Thank you for providing context. It sounds positive, and we're obviously just looking at action following, these decisions that had been made, and the correct management of the finances, and obviously how they affect the ordinary citizens at large. Benoit Leroy weighing in, SA Water Chamber CEO, Johannesburg, edging closer to summer. We're just looking at water security at this time.